Well, Peter was by far the most outspoken member of the disciples of Jesus. I think we can all agree on that. Peter tended to speak first and ask questions later. He thus put his foot in his mouth so often that he had to have a special lip balm attached to his sandals. But you know, given that, he was also the first one to publicly acknowledge that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. And who else walked on water? I mean, come on. So there were some risks and there were some benefits to being that guy out there on the edge. But it's interesting because towards the end, and we've been studying about the Last Supper and the prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane and then the arrest and trials of Jesus, Peter at the beginning was his normal, loyal, fleshly self. Where when Jesus said that all the men would flee, he said, "Not I will never flee you. Even if I have to die, I will never deny you." And then Peter looked at him square in the face and said, "Pete, let me tell you something. Before a rooster crows, in other words, before morning, before tomorrow morning, you're going to deny me 3 times. And I'm sure Peter was going, "No way." And maybe that was part of the reason that Peter reacted so strongly when the group from the religious leaders of Israel came to arrest him, and he, pulled out that sword in that great feat of swordsmanship, on God, and he cuts off the ear of the high priest. Real great aim there for Peter. But then, as it turned out, all the bragging that Peter had done about how loyal he was to Jesus simply evaporated. When Jesus asked him to stay up, stay awake, and watch with Jesus while he prayed, Peter fell asleep. When the people came to arrest Jesus, Peter ran away. And now we're going to see here in this section of chapter 26 and into chapter 27, when push came to shove and it was time for Peter to fish or cut bait, he cut bait and he denied Jesus that he even knew him. So his theoretical loyalty to Jesus was really put to the test and found to be wanting. Now we also see in this section, we're going to go through verse 10 of chapter 27, and we're going to start in verse 69 of chapter 26. So we're seeing the denial of Jesus by Peter, but we're also seeing the end of Judas's life as well, and his rebellion and his betrayal. And it's interesting to me, and this is why I wanted to hook these two things together. I think it's why Matthew hooked these stories together so intrinsically, is because Peter and Judas are really a lot more alike than we would like to admit. Because both failed God. But they are not alike in one very important aspect that makes all the difference. And we are either like Peter or we are like Judas. We all fail God. The question is, what do we do when we fail? So we'll get to that as we go through here. So we found out in verse 57 of chapter 26 that they took Jesus to the house of Caiaphas. It's also probably adjoined to Annas. Annas had been the high priest. He had been deposed by Rome. They put Caiaphas in his place, but the people still kind of considered Annas, his father-in-law, to be the high priest. So they took Jesus to Annas' house and then to Caiaphas' house, and there's this courtyard around. And the Apostle John got Peter and he entrance to that courtyard. And so it says that, verse 58, Peter was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside, he sat with the guards to see the end. Now, Peter was trying to go incognito. Peter was trying to go undercover. Peter just wanted to see what was happening. Obviously, Peter's heart was going 1,000,000 miles an hour. He was worried, he was concerned, but he still had this incredible love and connection to Jesus. At one point, when a lot of people left following Jesus, and Jesus turned to his men and he said, "Will you too leave?" And Peter said, "Where are we going to go? You've got the answers." And Peter knew that down deep, and yet he had still failed. He was still weak. But he's there watching this kangaroo court, the sham trial take place, and we talked a lot about that last week. If you're interested, you can go out to our website, calvarychapelnewburgh.org. Check out the study notes. I've got a couple of links actually out to more information about why the trial of Jesus was so illegal. And even coming out of the Jewish law, the Mishnah, as they had prescribed a way for the courts to act. But so they had condemned Jesus, and then in verse 69, the scene shifts back to Peter. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the Galilean." Now, this could be actually a very dangerous thing, because who is Peter sitting with? The guards, the very ones that had arrested Jesus, and so he gets pointed out as one who was following Jesus. But it says in verse 70, "But he denied it before them all, saying, 'I do not know what you mean.'" So the first thing that Peter did was just, let's avoid the topic altogether. Lots of noise going on, the freeway's pretty close. I couldn't really understand. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's move on. Oh, hey, look at that guard. Doesn't he have a new sword? That's really awesome. Maybe if I'd had that one, I'd had a better luck. I don't know. But he says, "I don't know what you mean. What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Oh, look at the time." And he stands up and he moves away quickly. And he went out to the entrance. So now he's even more on the periphery. And another servant girl saw him. And she said, not just to Peter now, but she said to the bystanders. So here's Peter at the gate, he's just minding his own, being as invisible as possible. He would have moved away from the firelight to have been even less visible. But she recognized him, and she's talking to the bystanders around, saying, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." I mean, you can just imagine Peter and what he's thinking here. I'm going to get arrested. And it says in verse 72, "And again he denied it with an oath, 'I do not know the man.'" Now, when it says he denied it with an oath, that would be the same kind of thing you would do in a court of law, where you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Do you know Jesus? No. So that would have been that kind of oath that we're talking about here. So this is much more serious. Peter's taken it up several notches. So maybe he thinks that's it. But verse 73, after a little while, now those bystanders that the servant girl planted the idea in, they came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you two are one of them, for your accent betrays you." So Peter came from the Galilee region, and he would have had an accent in speaking Aramaic more like a Syrian than he would have somebody from Judea, somebody down in the area of Jerusalem. Just like we all speak English, right? But if I come and say, "Morning, y'all," or I talk about going down to Toity-Toit and going up on the roof. You kind of get the idea. I don't come from around here. So that his accent gave him away. He had that Galilean accent. And they say, "Your accent betrays you. You cannot hide who you are. We know you're from Galilee. We know that you were with Jesus." And so, verse 74, he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know the man." So essentially he's saying, God should strike me dead if I'm not telling the truth. Wow. I mean, really, think about all that Peter has said, even just a few hours before. "Though all will deny you, I will never deny you. If I have to go to my death, I will always stick by your side, Jesus. You can count on me. I am with you all the way. And I don't know you, by the way." And it says, immediately the rooster crowed. Now we also know from Luke's Gospel in chapter 22 that as soon as that rooster started crowing, cock-a-doodle-doo, and it's like Peter must have been an audio learner. I have visual, tactile, and isn't it audio? Or is that what it is? Anyway, so it was a audio reminder. Oh yeah, Jesus said, I was going to deny him 3 times. And at that moment, Luke